Here I am, climbing up, feeling great, getting love. Here I go, risk it all, be worth it now, and that's for sure. Watch me as I rock a team.
Alright, episode 21 of Fight Talk Down Under is brought to you by CMBT. Go to cmbt.com.au for all your protein powder, protein bars, pre-workout, all that good stuff. You know, we all know CMBT in this industry, so go to cmbt.com.au and give them some love. Now here at Fight Talk Down Under, we deal in facts, right? But the fact is that 83% of penile injuries involve a razor. But it doesn't have to be this way. Bare Nuts is a hair removal cream that's specifically formulated for sensitive areas. So go to nutcare.com.au, use the promo code FIGHTNEWS for 10% off at the checkout. That's nutcare.com.au, promo code FIGHTNEWS. Now, welcome everyone. For those who don't know, of course, I'm Dan Meehan. I'm from Fight News Australia, and my co-host, who's just under 3 weeks away from taking on Muhammad Alavi at Eternal 67, is of course Lockjaw Justin Van Heerden. How are you, mate?
I'm good. Yeah, we're back at it. Like Dan said, protect your nutsack, look after your nutsack, do the right thing, make it as easy as possible. It's precious. We've got to look after it, especially if you want to succeed with the ladies. Let's keep that in mind. But no, man, 3 weeks out, we're here. I'm 3 weeks out from my level test fight, which I'm sick of hearing. Like, I'm sick of people talking about this dude like he's levels above everyone. Let's call it how it is. The dude's a one-dimensional striker who's aggressive and explosive and just comes out to knock you out. That's his game plan. Cool. That's not a level test for me. That's sort of a bit. It is what it is. It literally, the way I see it is, if he doesn't knock me clean the fuck out with some crazy aggressive flurry, he's pretty well screwed, because he can't take me down. He can't submit me. So if the knockout's off the table, like, what are we talking about? What is there? What's the level that I'm not seeing? But anyway, yeah, excited. We're 3 weeks out, but we got a lot happening between now and then still. We got UFC happening, we got beatdown promotions happening, we got boxing happening, we got a bunch of shit happening, so plenty to focus on, plenty to talk about. But yes, July 16th, Muhammad Alavi's getting bashed.
Absolutely. As you say, in between now and then, we've got plenty to talk about. Obviously, we're going to get to UFC 276, which obviously involves your teammate Alexander Volkanovski and Israel Adesanya from City Kickboxing, amongst a bunch of other Anzacs. So, we'll get to all that. But before we do, we've got a fair bit to cover in the local news. So, we'll start with another Kiwi fighter, Carlos Ulberg, fought over the weekend at UFC Fight Night Sarukian versus Gamrot. And he's taken out Tafon and Chukwi early in the first round with pretty explosive flurry. So what do you make of Carlos Ulberg's performance?
Well, what I say, guys, Carlos was going to keep the range, use that sort of, like Josh even touched on last week's episode, that hybrid kickboxing sort of point fight and approach, stay on the outside, manage the distance well, lots of feints, lots of kicks. He did that, and Chukwi decided for whatever reason to just sort of keep walking forward like a zombie, just sort of anticipating the cutoff to kind of get him against the cage and throw those big punches. And so Carlos clipped him with like a beautiful sort of, I guess, lead hook. It was sort of like the in-between between a jab and a hook. It was a beautiful punch, just landed straight on the chin. Obviously, they're light heavyweights, they pack some power. Old mate kind of got rocked, and then Carlos, was cerebral in his sort of finishing ability. Blackjack got in there, got it done. 75 seconds, get in, get out, get paid. And from what I saw, he went straight to the Apex, or to the Performance Institute, and went to help Izzy and Volk and Brad do their spiders and sort of last minute preparations that they have to do, and last minute sort of red sessions for fight week. So yeah, what a man. What a man.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, good on him. I guess, like fighters often say, they don't get paid by the hour. So, he got Nchukwi out of there nice and early. And I guess Nchukwi, looking back at the fight, was, again, another fighter like his previous opponent, Fabio Chiron, was a guy who kind of played into Carlos's strengths in the end, right? He was a guy who does walk forward, does like to throw hands. And, in the end, Carlos just ended up being a bit faster and a bit more powerful.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, it's nothing wrong with walking forward, but, like, you can walk forward on anyone, and that can be the approach that you have. Like, I mean, look, it could be pretty much everyone he fought. He just constantly had pressure on him and walked him down, but he didn't just walk him down and not offer anything. There was the constant threat of a level change. There was the constant head movement. The hands are up in their face. Like he was sort of entertaining, drawing the punches out a little bit, making them almost think that he was going to strike with them, and then he would still show the level changes, or then he would shoot. So there's that constant, and everyone knew that was coming, so that was a constant threat. There's a difference between that and then just walking forward with, like, not offering. It's not like old mate was jabbing his way in. It's not like he was showing feints. It's not like he was shifting off, coming from an angle. He was literally just walking forward, had his hands sort of sitting on his chest a little bit, was just kind of walking forward, anticipating that he might get Carlos in the fence and then explode him with a big shot, but it just didn't come. So, that's whenever I see that, and especially you see that, it's so weird that you see that so often at the top level of the sport. Like, this is the upper echelon of the sport. You're fighting in the UFC. You think you wouldn't see shit like that. And I was actually having this discussion with someone today. It's still amazing to me how many, like, simple errors and mistakes like that you still see at the top level. It just shows you, like, you always, just because you're fighting at that level doesn't mean that you get to stop and not still focus on those little things and improve those little things and do them correctly, because you're still going to get your fucking head punched in, as we saw.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there are guys like Nchukwi that, they obviously have a bit of power, and they can sort of bang their way through I guess the lower echelons of the sport. So, but eventually you get to a point where there are people like Carlos Ulberg who can sort of move and sort of keep them guessing and aren't going to get sort of pinned against the cage, and they're not going to allow them to sort of punch holes in you, really. So, does that sort of sound like a fair assessment in the end?
Yeah, pretty much. You're just, like, pretty much spot on. Like, as you go through the lower ranks, like you just said, you can get away with that shit. Okay, I just need to land that one shot. I'm going to get that opportunity because the person's not going to have the awareness. When you get to this level of the sport, and you're fighting someone from a kickboxing gym, a gym that's so set on utilizing distance, fighting from an outside range, big on feints, big on kicks, big on throwing those weapons your way and jamming you up, so you can't just walk your way in and do what you want to do. It's just not the right approach. Like, if you're going to do that shit, the only person that's sort of shown the way that you can do that and have some success has been, like, Calvin Gastelum when he fought Izzy. You've got to just go all the way in, and when you're going all the way in, you just got to throw, like, punches and bunches, combinations, and be, like, all the way there. You can't just walk forward and hope that you're going to eventually get close enough to hit him. You just got to blitz in and go. And even then, Izzy adjusted and ended up getting the win anyway. Like, dropped him, nearly put him away, and ended up getting the win. So it's like, it's a hard sort of thing to think about. And especially, that's a hard thing to deal with if the attributes are even, if you know what I mean. Carlos is a tall dude. He's a tall dude. He's big. He's long. Like, there was a noticeable sort of reach and height difference. So that makes it even harder, man. Like, if it'd be one thing trying to walk someone like that down if you're the same size, same sort of rough reach and stuff like that, just trying to do that sort of style of walking forward, trying to land that one punch. But you take away the height, you take away the reach, it's going to be like a shit night for you pretty much from the get-go.
Yeah, and so it turned out to be for Tafon Nchukwi in the end. So, Carlos Ulberg sort of motors on and, onto the next challenge for him. Yeah,
so I'll be interested to see what they do to him, but he said he wants to, just stay active, keep going, and then, he's obviously, doing the work with some talented people. His coaches have obviously got the right, I guess, approach and focus on what they want him to do. So it'll be interesting to see what they sort of do next. And then, after watching that fight, if they slowly sort of make those incremental improvements and we just keep seeing these sort of leaps from performance to performance, man, he's going to be another person we're going to talk about as a contender in that division.
Absolutely, yeah. Now, also over the weekend, we had Sam Kay. Obviously, Sam Kay is Tongan, but he's based in Sydney. He trains with Ross Pearson, so he was in action in PFL 5 over the weekend. Obviously, a former Hex heavyweight champion. He took on Juan Adams, who was sort of a late replacement. In the pool, they've obviously had some issues with the heavyweights there. Sam Kay had his visa issues, so missed his first fight. Juan Adams has stepped in on short notice to take him on, and unfortunately, he's lost by second round TKO by ground and pound, and he had some problems in the first round, sort of trying to get Juan Adams off him, but managed to sort of light him up, and but then he got taken down and sort of stopped with ground and pound as both guys sort of gassed out. But I don't know, for me, it felt like it was maybe a bit of a missed opportunity for Sam Kay. I don't particularly rate Juan Adams all that highly. I don't know. How did you see the fight anyway?
Frustrating. It was frustrating to watch, man. Like you sort of said, Juan Adams is nothing special, and I feel like this fight was very winnable for Sam. It was a fight that he could have capitalized on and got the win in, and I don't think the performance is up to the standard of fighter that he is. Like, I feel like he has potential to do quite well. Ross kind of said something after the fact about that. He still said that he was pretty vocal to Ray Sefo on that about Sam, and that this guy is going to be someone that we're going to see doing big things on the world stage. Like, I just don't think that performance was up to his standard, was up to what I'd expect from him. But in saying that, you got to call it like it is too. I think nowadays, with how things are set up in the heavyweight division, and you see what some of these heavyweights are able to do across the board, there is no longer an excuse for conditioning to be shit as a heavyweight. You can't be like, oh no, it's all right. You can't expect, like, heavyweights are known for their conditioning. That's bullshit. Because look at some of the fights we've seen recently across the board in different promotions, and some of these heavyweights that we've seen get out there and fight. Like, they got the conditioning. They're in shape. They can go. They can fight for the 5 rounds. And it's competitive, and they don't slow down. So there's no excuse in my book that as a heavyweight you can't have good cardio and be able to perform. Like, how you tell me you're coming into the second round of a fight and you're looking like you just fought 25 minutes? Like, it shouldn't be like that. But so I'll say that like it is, but I feel like we're going to see Sam sort of back in the world stage at some point, and hopefully he's going to be able to perform to the standard that we kind of expect him to.
Yeah, I hope so. Does it feel like Sam's a bit undersized for heavyweight though? Juan Adams is a big guy, but Sam looked a fair bit smaller on the night. And we know he's signed to fight. The fight didn't end up happening, but he did sign to fight Rob Wilkinson at light heavyweight in Hex last year. So yeah, did it feel like a bit of a size difference there for you?
To be honest, I didn't even know until like pretty much the weigh-ins. I didn't actually click the fight was at heavyweight, and then once I kind of like figured that out, I was real shocked, because that dude looks like he could make middleweight really if he just started working with the right people. I feel like he could fight at middleweight. I feel like he could trim off some of that body weight and fight at middleweight, because he doesn't seem all that tall, and doesn't seem all that big size wise either. Like, compared to some of these other heavyweights you're gonna be fighting, like some of the dudes that you'd be fighting if you say he was successful and he's fighting in the PFL and the heavyweight division, some of those dudes are massive, man. Like, he's fighting some monsters. So it'd be interesting. Like, maybe light heavyweight could be a better option, but even then, you're looking at someone like Rob Wilkinson, and it's like, fuck, I don't know, is light heavyweight even the move? Do you just need to switch things up and fight a middleweight? Because he'd be a decent sized middleweight. And he'd obviously packs a lot of fucking power, so he'd be able to do some work in that weight division quite nicely, I believe. But it just depends. I mean, obviously they must, like Ross and him and his team, they must feel like that sort of weight class and place suits him. Maybe he doesn't want to have to cut weight, doesn't want to have to worry about all that bullshit, just wants to be able to train, prepare himself, and then get in there and fight and not have to worry about all that other bullshit, which is fine. But then if you are going to do that, be in better shape, sort your conditioning out. You know what I mean? Like, if you are going to take the thing off the table where you're not going to drop down in weight, you're not going to cut weight, you're not going to put yourself through any of that sort of stuff, well, then go balls deep, get your conditioning sorted, be in the best shape possible, and continue to fight in that weight class.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like light heavyweight's possibly the move. We don't know whether he could do middleweight sort of in a healthy way or not. We don't really know. But he, like you say, he doesn't look that huge. And those Islander boys, they're pretty pretty solidly built guys. So yeah, we don't know if he could make middleweight or not. But yeah, definitely heavyweight just seemed a bit undersized to me. And I think that was possibly part of the reason why he was sort of gassed in that second round, was he had a big guy like Juan Adams putting his weight on him for throughout the duration of the fight. But yeah, be interesting to see what they do with Sam K moving forward, because yeah, it seemed like a missed opportunity, but also yeah, maybe not the right weight class for him.
Yeah, no, I'm inclined to agree with you. It'd be interesting to sort of see what the move is.
Absolutely, but also this weekend we've got PFL 6 is on, so PFL's back in action. We've got City Kickboxing's Gina Fabian is back in action. She's taking on Larissa Pacheco. Now she's pretty much out of contention for the playoffs. She did beat Julia Budd in what was a bit of an upset in the first round of the competition, but she sits on minus one points because she missed weight. So she takes on Larissa Pacheco, who's sitting at the top of the table after beating Zamzagul Faizalanova. Thank you. I did not even rehearse that. So yeah, put that as a little clip on the on the Instagram or whatever you call it, because there you go. Just went in dry there. But there you go. Don't ask me to repeat it. But
I thought my furniture was about to start levitating. I don't know what you were doing then.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. It sounded like I was casting a spell, doesn't it? Yeah, this is some sort of Harry Potter sort of segment there. But no, that was actually the name of a fighter who got blasted by Larissa Pacheco in the first round of PFL. But yeah, Gina Fabian, it's an interesting matchup. What do you think?
We're just talking about weight classes and being right, and man, is she gonna make weight? Because that's the thing, you're a good fighter, you come from a good gym, you have sort of disciplined training partners and coaches and people to emulate, but it seems like she's constantly just having issues with weight and that sort of discipline side of things. But matchup wise, I don't know, she's obviously a big girl, she's powerful, she can strike, she can fight. But it's kind of hard to go off just unless she's coming into this and she's disciplined, she's going to make weight, and she's in the right mindset, in the right sort of thing across the board. It's hard for me to sort of go off that, because the other chick's going to show up, she's going to be on weight, she's going to be ready to fight, she's coming off a massive sort of previous performance that counted towards her being in line to go to the playoffs. So I just feel like it's almost it's just, you want to see the Anzacs do well, but at the same time, it's almost harsh to say, but it's fuck, man, you're not even in contention to be in the playoffs. You probably, even if you do win, you kind of don't deserve to. At the end of the day. It's
yeah, absolutely. It's a tough one for Gina, because there's not really much beyond featherweight in the women's division, so whether she's sort of too big for the weight class, or whether she needs to kind of just tighten up, I guess, on the discipline stuff, as you sort of touched on there. I don't know, but if she wants to have a future in these big these big promotions, then the featherweight division is something she's going to have to strive for.
Yeah, because you don't have much options other than that. I think there's more featherweight options in the PFL than there is anywhere else. Even in, look at the UFC and stuff like that, you don't really have too many other options and places to go to if you can't fight in that weight division. And even in PFL, above that weight, there's only a handful of people that you can fight at lightweight, which is Clarissa Shields potentially, Kayla Harrison potentially, because I know she's pretty big, pretty big girl. So but even then, there's a finite amount of matchups that you can sort of get. So it's something to sort of tighten up and then reevaluate, because it costs you the chance to be in a playoffs and fighting for $1 million.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a huge miss in the end for in a sporting competition like PFL. It's sort of it costs you the opportunity at the playoffs in the end. But it's a fun matchup though against Larissa Pacheco. She's someone who's been there and done that. She's fought in the UFC, 2019 PFL finalist. She has a win over Irene Aldana, but she lost to Durandamy and Jessica Andrade, and she has 2 losses to Kayla Harrison. So she's been there and done that. So anyway, regardless, it's going to be a big test for Gina.
It should be a good fight regardless. It shapes up like to be one that shouldn't go the distance. We should see a finish, and hopefully it goes the way of Gina. But at the end of the day, like, it's just it's a frustrating sort of thing to try and get excited about, because it's it's a irrelevant outcome even if she does win.
Yeah, it's a bit of a dead rubber for Gina Fabian, isn't it? But also on the weekend on the local scene, we had Urban Fight Night 30, which obviously the main event. Former Eternal Lightweight champion Josh Togo defeated Edimar Teixeira by unanimous decision. But did you watch the card, and what can you tell us?
Yeah, so watched the card. There was a few. There's a few good fights on the card, like some good, interesting matchmaking that was happening there. There was a few fights that kind of provided the goods. But I guess, the main focus for me was obviously the main event. Togo coming in, fighting at welterweight, normally fights at lightweight, fighting, Edimar, who trains at Central Coast MMA, trains with Jamie Malaki, works under Ross Pearson. So it was shaped up to be a cracking sort of fight. Togo took the fight on short notice. I read a thing saying, he pretty much came back. It was on a week's notice. The dude was like coughing his lungs up all fight week. Was like just in a shit sort of spot. Went out there. Boys got after it, scrapped, and he was able to get the win. So, that's a pretty big sort of thing for him to do, because Edimar's a pretty experienced guy, man. He's had like a bunch of fights too, and I got to spar and move around with him a couple of weeks ago. As well, and I was very impressed by sort of the skills and abilities that he has, and how the things that he was sort of able to do. So I was really pumped when I saw that he was fighting, and then when I saw that Josh was stepping up to fight him sort of short notice, and I was thinking, because I'm quite fond of Josh as well, I was like, holy shit, this is going to be like a really good fight. And it was an interesting fight, but ultimately Josh was the one that was able to just sort of do a little bit more and get the win. But yeah, other than that, there was a couple of amateur fights that kind of were just good to see. Like I always talk about, that the level of amateur MMA is getting so high now. You're watching some of these amateurs fight, you think that you're watching pros fight, like seasoned pros. So that was cool to see, and I like that Urban is another platform for some of these amateurs to sort of get exposure and keep fighting, and that so I appreciate that Saman and Ashkan are putting a show together where they're giving people these opportunities to sort of start their career in MMA, albeit that their promotion's a bit iffy sometimes, a bit weird. There's some weirdness that happens in this place, and it seems like it's not always the most professionally sort of organized show from what I've gathered, but hey, they're putting on fights, they're just trying to do right by people, and you can't knock that. I can appreciate that. I do feel for one of the dudes on the card. He had his fight pulled on the day. His opponent apparently didn't sort out his medical or some shit that like somehow that got missed with the CSA sort of stuff with the commission, and then there's some other issue that like kind of ruled him out from being able to fight, which is kind of weird to me, because that sort of stuff that you think you'd have a wrap on before the actual fight day, you know what I mean? Like, so
yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, it seems strange to me that they would be submitting that on the day.
So it was, there was some weirdness there. So one of the fights fell through on the card, and that's pretty rough to get your fight scrapped on the day of the fucking fight after you've already made weight, killed yourself to do that probably, or whatever the case is. But all in all, Urban was a successful event again. They had a few good fights. They had, obviously that, like, you can see the support that the fighters had on the night, because obviously you had people like Josh Kulabau, Jamie Malaki, they're cornering some of their people. So that's always cool when you see the guys that are fighting at the top level of the sport that are there supporting their sort of teammates and up and coming guys, and getting sort of stuck in. It was a bit weird though. One of my friends was at the event, and he did highlight the fact that it was almost like there just seemed like there was a lack of, I guess, security sort of stuff that was happening, because there was just a bunch of sort of issues that happened throughout the night, and just sort of shit that kind of like drew away from the event a little bit. So that's kind of rough, and like you don't want that. I mean, and I'm sure Simon and Ashkan, I get it. They own and operate ATT, and I get it. The whole vibe of the gym and the bravado and everything like that is these tough people who are just grinding out every day, who came from nothing, reached the top pinnacle of the sport, blah 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 blah. I get they want to put out this sort of tough exterior, but at the end of the day, I guarantee you those two gentlemen don't want this sort of shit happening. They don't want fucking dramas at their show. They don't want anything taken away from the fights, from the fighters, and from the promotion. Like, at the end of the day, they're trying to run a promotion because they're passionate about the sport. Although I will, albeit people might not agree with the way they do things, not everyone might support how they do things, but I do genuinely believe at the end of the day, they're two people that are passionate about the sport. They want to put on fights. They want to give people a platform. So if you are attending their shows, if you are people that are going there to support people, pull your fucking heads in, stop acting like gronks, because you're taking away from the people whose night it is, and that's the people in the cage fighting.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. Now, also, coming up this weekend, we're going to cover off Jai Opetaia, who's fighting for the IBF Cruiserweight World title. He's got a huge test against Maris Briedis. Briedis is he's 37 years old. He's from Latvia. His only loss on his record is against Alexander Usyk. So we've seen what he's sort of gone on to do. And Usyk even said himself that Briedis was the toughest fight that he's the toughest 12 rounds that he's had in his career so far. So Opetaia, he's had an impressive career so far. He's fought some tough domestic opposition, but he's got a world-class opponent this weekend with the IBF world title on the line. So. What do you make of it?
Yeah, it's going to be a big test, and obviously, being the fact that he's 37 years old, I don't think that matters when we just saw that Lucas Brown killed a guy not too long ago, and he's like 75 years old. So, obviously, if your only loss is someone like Usyk, and you went like 12 hard rounds with someone like that, and obviously, like you said, we've seen what he's gone on to do. We've seen what he did to Anthony Joshua and stuff like that. So. Man, this is going to be a big test. So I think it's going to be one of those fights where we're going to have a pretty clear answer on what the outcome is going to be within like the first 5 rounds. I think we're going to have an understanding of if there's the level, and this is the sort of the point that you need to be at. We're going to be able to see if he's there, or if he's exceeded that, or if he's just still below that. We're going to have that answer in the first 5 rounds, because, more often than not, especially in the boxing realm and those sort of side of things, when we see a fighter fight, some decent opposition on the domestic side of things, and then they step up and they get this opportunity where they fight like someone who's had a bit more world-class experience, who's been in there with some, monsters of the sort of division. That's sort of when you see that fairly quickly. You can see that's when you really see, okay, this is where the level is skyrocketed to now. It's like, this is where you need to be. There's no in between. This is where it needs to be. So it's going to be an interesting sort of first half of the fight, or the first sort of 4 or 5 rounds is going to be interesting, and I think that's going to tell the story of how the fight's going to continue. But I feel like, it's an interesting test, but at the same time, young, old, all those sort of factors, you got to kind of, experience versus
youth.
Yeah, it's probably the best way to put it. So it's like, we're going to see how that plays out. But the main thing that's going to be sort of my focus is going to be how the power translates in those first 5 rounds, and how you deal with the adversity that's going to offer you. When you are standing in front of someone who's been there with some of like the best people, and he's sort of has that comfortable sort of devil may care attitude when he's standing in front of you, and he's just ready to put them on your chin.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Opetaia's, his advantage is probably going to be the speed, and like you say, that sort of the youth and the athleticism and those sorts of things. But I guess we'll just see if the boxing skills are actually on that sort of world level at this point, because he's fighting one of the very best in that division, and 37 years old, like you say, it's not that old in in cruiserweight terms. So yeah, it's going to be a big test for Opetaya, and it'll be huge for Australian boxing if he can pull it off, and we get another world champion in our ranks.
Oh, 100%. It's just going to boost the level of the sport again even more. Obviously, we've got so much happening in the boxing side of things as well domestically. Obviously with the Kambosos fight that just happened, we got a fair few boxers that are doing quite well, that are ranked pretty high in the world rankings across their divisions. You got people that are just across the board are just kind of like stepping up and showing the level that Australian boxing is getting to again. It's getting people excited about boxing again, which I found. I'm finding that people are kind of like there's a buzz that's forming, and people are sort of realizing, oh shit, there's these people that are out here, competing in this sport. Like, obviously MMA is obviously going to always be number one for me, but it's cool to see that even people that are mostly sort of on the MMA train in a sense are starting to take notice and go, man, I need to start watching some more boxing. And that's what we need. We need people to sort of win these big fights, get these world titles, do really well, find the success, and then sort of keep boosting the sport up. Because at the end of the day, we want to see combat sports, whether it's MMA, boxing, kickboxing, whatever, it doesn't matter. We want to see it continue to rise. We want to see it continue to grow, because I don't want to see it die out, if you know what I mean. I don't want to see the interest lost for combat sports in any form, and especially not boxing, because that's what I grew up watching was boxing. It wasn't MMA back in the day. Like, that didn't become a thing till sort of later on, but grew up watching boxing. That's what was the attention. You'd get hyped up for these big boxing fights, and it'd have the whole world watching. So I feel like Australian boxing's back on the rise, and we just need these, people to start continuing the success that they're already having.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the same as you. I grew up watching boxing as well. It was my first love in combat sports. So it's great to see this new wave of talent coming, of Australian talent coming through. And obviously we've got Michael Zarafa and Tim Tszyu are sort of, hopefully going to be sort of booking their opportunities at world titles as well. So it's a good time to be involved in the sport and a fan of Australian boxing. But obviously another guy who's a part of that wave is Isaac Hardman. He's on the undercard of Opetaya versus Breedis. It's obviously his first fight back since the big grudge match loss to Michael Zarafa. And he's taking on Bo Hartis, who's 6-1. As a guy who's sort of information's a bit scarce. He's just looking down his record. He's largely untested, but he's got a big test against Isaac Hardman, and I guess Isaac will be looking to get back in the winners column and work his way back towards Michael Zarafa or another world rated opponent.
Yeah, so obviously, I mean, like you sort of said, I kind of try to look into old mate, and it's pretty scarce to kind of find decent sort of information and stuff, and even like footage for some of the fights, and that was just it didn't really say much or give me much to sort of go off. But I feel like Hardman's going to come out, look to bounce back from the Zarafa loss, do it in a violent way. He's obviously we know how Isaac approaches this sort of stuff. He wants to come in there, spark you out, and have you 10 toes to the ceiling. So I feel like that's what we're going to see. We're going to see Isaac come in there. He's got a chip on his shoulder now. He's obviously going to want to get back to Zarafa or someone of that level of caliber as quick as he can do. And I feel like this is going to be that sort of fight that allows him to do that. Go out there, shrug off your loss. Go out there, put on a show, be the outspoken personality that you are in and out of the ring. Showcase your skills, showcase the improvements that you've made, and then bounce back and get yourself back on track. So I feel like that's what we're going to see. I feel like we're going to see Isaac just go out there and bash someone.
Well, he did say when I interviewed him a couple of weeks ago, which of course my interview is on Fight News Australia YouTube channel, catch that one. He did say, like, while he does have a chip on his shoulder, it's more that he didn't get to show his boxing skills in the Michael Zarafa fight. He kind of got a bit emotional. He tried to just chase Zarafa down and punch holes in him, and he got sort of outboxed in the end, even though obviously he got stopped in the second round, but he didn't get to show his skills. So he said this time around he's really keen to show that he can box and that he can move and he can do all the sort of, he's not just a banger. So it'd be interesting to see how he approaches it, whether he does sort of, once that bell rings, whether he gets in there, he just tries to blow through Bo Hartis, or whether he sort of takes some time and moves around and, and tries to show out. So, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, 100%. And I know, like, I mean, I know Isaac. He's been putting in work. Like I've been keeping sort of tabs, and he's been getting in there doing the work. He's been looking to sort of step out of his comfort zone even more, approach things in a different way again, make the adjustments. So I'm excited. I just want to see some good, solid composure and I guess boxing skills put on display. And then at the end of it, I want to see a violent knockout because I want to see him do well and kind of continue the momentum that he had before the Zarafa fight, and then to get back because I think everyone wants to see that one again because the build up was so fun last time, and it'll be just the same this time.
Yeah, absolutely, and the fight was sort of a bit short-lived in the end. So I think we're all keen to see it again. But Isaac's going to need 2 or 3 wins to probably get himself back into into the frame for a fight like that. But now we've got to get to UFC 276. It's on this weekend. Obviously, the card is stacked from top to bottom, and there's a fair bit of Anzac talent in there. So we'll cover it all off. And the first one, the first cab off the rank, as the card sits at the moment, will be Jessica Rose Clark, who's taking on Julia Stolyarenko at bantamweight. So. Clark's obviously coming off a submission loss to Stephanie Egger in February it was, which snapped a 2-fight win streak. But she's 2-3 in her last 5. Stolyarenko is probably in her last chance in the UFC, really. She's 0-3. She's a BJJ black belt with 8 submission wins, all by armbar. So she's obviously a specialist, like he's a clear specialist. So I imagine Jessica Rose Clark's going to be sort of on guard after sustaining her first submission loss last time out. So what do you make of this matchup?
Yeah, we got Jessie Jess taking on Ronda Rousey off Wish, so it's going to be an interesting fight. It's by no means going to be an easy fight for Jessie Jess. Obviously, this chick can grapple. She's obviously adept in that region, like you sort of said. The term specialist definitely applies. But obviously, I don't know, man. My biggest thing with whenever Jessie Jess fights is she's a gamer, man. She's a dog in there. She likes to scrap. She likes to fight at the end of the day. And I feel like, she's going to have made the adjustments after her last fight. And I'm really hoping that she comes out there and gets a definitive sort of finish and goes out there and gets the win, because she kind of definitely needs it. And not just career-wise, she just needs it for herself. I think she just needs that little reminder of what she can do and how violent she can be in there. I feel like that's going to be the sort of approach. Keep it standing, keep the distance, and then just be violent, throw more, lots of volume, be accurate, be fast, combinations, angles, punches and bunches, all that sort of shit applies. But the biggest thing here is just going to be the mentality of, I just need to go out there and be as violent as possible, and then I can crumble a chick in front of me, because if she can't get me to the ground, she's probably going to break. So I think that's the approach that she sort of has to have for this.
Yeah, exactly. I imagine she's been drilling her armbar escapes pretty frequently going into this one. But I don't know. I think she's Jessica Rose Clark. She's a physically strong sort of girl. I don't think she's not going to be easy to take down, and I don't think she's really going to be engaging Stolyarenko in that sort of range. Really, just she's obviously got one clear sort of advantage, one clear weapon there, which is that sort of armbar. So I don't think she's going to want to go near that.
No.
Now, I thought we might cover this one off as well. Your countryman, Dricus du Plessis, obviously representing South Africa. I thought we might just cover this one off. I thought you might have something to say. He's been obviously pretty impressive in his UFC run so far. He's 2-0 in the UFC. He's taking on Brad Tavares, who's obviously an incredibly experienced UFC fighter. He's kind of he's 14-6 in the UFC, so that's 20 appearances. He's got a couple of wins in a row now against Omari Akhmedov and Antonio Carlos Jr., who are actually fighting each other in the PFL in a couple of months. So it is a step up in class for du Plessis, and how do you think he'll fare? Yeah,
this is an interesting sort of fight for Dricus. This is definitely a step up, because Tavares has fought everybody. He's fought Robert Whittaker, he's fought Adesanya, he's fought the who's who of the middleweight division. he's shown how hard he is to put away as well, and even in the some of the losses that he's had. I mean, obviously Rob finished him, but he's a hard dude to put away. He's a tough dude. He can fight. He's experienced. He's been around the game for a while, but Dricus is a special talent, man. The guy's just he's very good. He works, like, he's skilled. He's got the ability, but the dude works very, very, very hard, very, very hard. He trains very, very hard, and just approaches it like he's that. So he's got that sort of blue collar approach to it. I kind of look at his approach to his training and to how he sort of carries himself, and it's got its similarities to Volko in a sense. Like, the guy just hasn't changed a thing. He just gets in, does the work, keeps improving, and just treats it the same way. Outside of the UFC, the guy's a EFC champion, KSW champion. He's an absolute monster, man. He's a big, athletic, sort of freak type individual that fights middleweight. He's well suited to the weight class, and he's shown what he's capable of. He's got the power to put people away. If people haven't, you can go back and watch some of his fights outside of the UFC. You can see the guy's well-rounded. He's got the grappling ability. The guy can wrestle. So obviously I'm going to be high up on him because he is from South Africa. So I'm gonna blow him up. But by no means is this an easy matchup. But by no means is it going to be a sort of fight where I'm sitting there going, oh, he's not ready to be fighting something like this or anything like that. It's not an easy matchup, but he's going to make it look easy.
Yeah, we know Brad Tavares is kind of he's kind of the gatekeeper, right? No one really wants to have that sort of tag, but that's what Brad Tavares is. He's a high quality fighter, but he's just had a little bit of trouble getting over the hump, as you say. He's fought Whitaker and Adesanya, and he's fought everyone in the division. So he's going to need that win to sort of try and break out of the sort of that gatekeeper status. The more you win, the more you sort of push yourself back into contention. But if Duplessis can pull this one off, then that's how you launch yourself right up into the rankings, right? Is beating guys like Brad Tavares.
Yeah. So with the way that Dricus is approaching it and his team and everything like that. So he was actually scheduled to fight Kelvin Gastelum, and then that fell through. And then there was going to be a last-minute replacement fight against Brendan Allen, and then that fell through. Dricus was over training at Stanford or whatever the fuck it's called with Henry Hoof and that. So
Stanford,
he's sort of bit down, stayed over in the US, trained there for a while, branched out, got that extra sort of experience, even with stuff falling through. Now he's got this fight lined up with Tavares. He's fighting on international fight week on a big, card under some absolute giants of the sport. And these are the moments that, someone like Dricus is going to come out and shine in and put on another performance and, go out there and potentially get another big finish and kind of start separating himself from the other prospects in the division and kind of progress forward a bit.
Absolutely. And how big would this be for MMA in Africa and particularly South Africa, of course? Like, the guy like Duplessis sort of leading the way. Obviously, we've got guys like Adesanya, guys like Kamaru Usman, but we haven't seen too many sort of South African talents sort of in the bigger promotions. So how significant would it be for a guy like Duplessis to sort of to go on a run up the rankings?
He's definitely like flying the flag and sort of putting the sport on the map for South Africa and kind of building it up. There's obviously I follow what's going on with the sport there, and I know of some guys that are like talented that we're going to see at the top level of the sport eventually. But right now, Dricus is definitely showcasing the pathway that you can fight on some of the promotions there, build your way up, fight on UFC, fight and sort of tee these fights up, win these sort of big matchups, and then find your path to the sort of top level of the sport and find the success. So I sort of equate it to, like we see with the Anzacs now at the moment, we're just everywhere. They're just killing it. They're fighting in these championship fights. They're killing it in the divisions, and there's this boost of talent that's just rising. And obviously PFL, all these other promotions are starting to take notice, and the talent levels just keep rising, and the sort of the focus is on the Oceanic region at the moment. And, South Africa is going to fall into that now. Dricus goes out there, performs against Tavares, keeps rising through. We're going to see that same sort of effect. He's he's gonna make people take notice and go, what's going on there? Like, what's going on in this country that, this guy just kind of sort of seemingly come out of nowhere and he's killing it and beating the top middleweights in the world. Like, let's go, let's have a look. Like, what else is going on there? Who else is fighting on these sort of promotions there, and what else is sort of happening there? So it's important. I feel, and he's putting that pressure. Putting that pressure on himself willingly. He's very vocal about doing that. Putting South Africa on the map. Going out there and performing and wanting nothing less than a finish and a definitive win every time he steps in there, because he just wants to continue to shine that spotlight on there.
Yeah, awesome. Well, yeah, hopefully he can pull through and keep flying that flag. But also on the card we've got another Kiwi in Brad Riddell, who's taking on Jalen Turner. Now, obviously we know Riddell's coming off the wheel kick KO loss to Rafael Fiziev, but Jalen Turner's been the Aussie killer. He's obviously looking to turn the Anzac killer now. He's got wins over Callan Potter, Josh Kulabau, and Jamie Malaki, all by stoppage, and he's also got 4 wins in a row. So can Brad Riddell break the curse on behalf of us Aussies?
I fucking hope so, man. I hope Brad can get this one back for everyone, because obviously, like you said, Jalen's been a fucking problem for the Australians so far. I like Jalen Turner though, man. I think he's super talented. He is real likable. I don't want to wish any ill will towards the guy, but I do want to see Brad punch his fucking face off and put him away and get one back. I'm a big fan of Brad Riddell. The dude's just a fucking fighter, man. You can't not like that dude. He just likes to scrap. He's a proud dad as well. You gotta go for the dads. You gotta support the dads.
Yeah, dad's army.
He's a fucking beast, man. So, and like I said, when he was here at Freestyle, man, I was surprised when we moved around the dude at how well-rounded he actually is. Obviously, he knows kickboxing credentials and his stand-up abilities fucking through the roof. But he beat John Wayne Parr in fucking Muay Thai. Like, I know John Wayne Parr's old as shit when that happened, but it doesn't matter. The dude can still fight. This is pre-hip replacement, all that sort of shit. So, Brad's obviously a beast, but fuck, man, that dude's built like a fucking ox. Like, his body feels like it's made out of wood or some shit. He can wrestle, he can grapple, he's strong as shit. So I feel like people are going to be surprised in this one. I know Jalen's a tall, athletic dude. He likes to strike, but when we're talking about being able to sort of dictate the striking exchanges, being able to sort of mix things in with the takedowns and stuff like that, I feel like we're gonna see Brad be able to do that. We're gonna see Jalen be surprised by the fact that how well Brad can actually do in those other sort of facets of combat outside of the striking. When he does decide to level change, when he does decide to push him up against the fence and mix that in. But at the end of the day, Brad can just fucking strike. He can bang it out and punch on with anyone. And as good as Jalen is, you need to have something special to be able to take advantage of the small openings you might get on the feet, a la like we saw Fiziev able to do in the last fight. But Fiziev's another one. That dude's a special talent and a sort of freak when it comes to that side of things as well. But it's a tough fight. It's a big fight, but I think Brad's going to go out there and do his thing and showcase his skills.
Yeah, I feel like the kind of like you touched on there, the the length that Turner brings to the table, the reach and the height and reach that he has is probably nothing that Brad Riddell hasn't seen in his kickboxing and Muay Thai career. So I think that sort of range control is probably it's not something that's going to be foreign to him. So as long as he can keep the fight standing, I think there's a good chance that he can get it done.
100%, he's going to fucking put him away. That's my prediction. He's going to put him away.
Yeah, and I love that you said that you don't wish any ill will to Jalen Turner, except that you want to see him get his face punched in. That was a good line. I enjoyed that. So maybe we can stick that one on the Instagram page as well or something. But we've got to get to the co-main event for this one. It's obviously your teammate Alex Volkanovski taking on Max Holloway for the third time. Obviously, he's 2-0 against Max Holloway. He's coming off the win against Chan Sung Jung. And obviously, Holloway's beaten Calvin Kattar and Yair Rodriguez last year since their last meeting. So they're both coming in with more wins in the bank. And Volk's going to be going out there looking to just close this chapter, like end the debate once and for all against Max Holloway. What do you reckon?
Yeah, so it's my good friend, training partner, coach is fighting my gaming buddy. So it's a fucking weird spot to be in. But nah, obviously I'm on Team Volko. You know, I want to see Volko out there and do this and do it definitively and put this to bed. 3-0, nail in the coffin. Max got to move up to lightweight or fucking go game professionally for the foreseeable future and just not worry about fighting anymore, because you ain't getting another title fight after this. I don't care if you go out and beat everyone else in the division. It's just not a thing. you can't go 0-3 against someone and think that you're going to come back and get another title fight. There's a rough spot for Max to be in. But yeah, Volk had a sick camp, man. Obviously he split it between freestyle and city kickboxing. The dude is just on another level, man. I can appreciate, after spending so much time in this camp emulating Holloway, I can appreciate the dude's fighting ability and his style, and I can understand how his style can frustrate people. If someone entertains that and they want to sort of, unless they're sort of going to stand their ground and throw back, if they want to try and strike, but they're not really going to just stand in front of you and throw back, like we saw Yair do, like Rodriguez do in the second half of the fight. He kind of just stood his ground and started throwing back, gave Max a few more problems. But if you're just someone who's going to keep it on the feet and be moving backwards and not really giving them those adjustments, you can see why Max has so much success with his volume and his pressure and just being able to just sort of wear on people. But against Volko, that's out the window, and it's out the window even more. Like, the dude is just he's on another level again, man. Like, he just gets in, keeps working, keeps improving, and like, I'm just baffled every time when he is doing some of these harder sessions where he's like, he might be like 5-6 rounds into sparring, and I'll full clip try and like do something to him, and I'm like, because he's got a fresh person coming in every round, I'm like feeling reasonably good. I'm reasonably sort of fresh because I didn't just spar 6 rounds in a row, and then I'm going like full clip trying to do something, and the dude's still just like, it's like you just can't do anything. You're like, what the fuck? Like, I should be able to do something. Like, you're 6 5-minute rounds into sparring, I should be able to fucking do something. But that just speaks to the work ethic, like the continued work ethic, the continued conditioning that he does, the just the same approach. But yeah, I honestly feel like Volk's going to go out there and put on a show, man. And if you saw how much faster he was in the zombie fight, how much more, how he was even more accurate, timing was even better, his distance was even better, which is so crazy to think because it was already at such a high level. I know, like, when you look at the division, Volk and Max are sort of levels above everyone, but I feel like this is going to be the fight where Volk really, really puts this to bed, ends this trilogy, and, I'm calling finish. I feel like Volk's going to put him away this time.
Does he need a finish to sort of close this chapter? I know, for us with our sort of Aussie goggles on, he's 2-0 against Max Holloway. There's no real sort of, it's not really a debate for us, but the broader MMA community still dispute the Max Holloway decisions and all those sorts of things. Does he need a finish to sort of end the debate once and for all, or do you think he can sort of, I guess a reasonably dominant decision would get it done this time?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he needs a finish, but I hope he gets one. I honestly hope he gets one. But he doesn't need one. I mean, if we look at the first fight, he won that 5-0, like 5-0, outstruck him completely, set a record for leg strikes in the fight, for a featherweight fight. Like, every round he outstruck him, just kind of just pieced him up. So I feel like whether he does that again or whether he gets a finish, either way, it's going to be all said and done. It's going to be dominant. It's going to be done, and it's just going to be put to bed, which is like I think, we had people like Adesanya and that sort of speak about this already, but like, Max is lucky to even have this fucking fight now, like to even get this fight again. So, I feel like Volko has got bigger plans for himself. His legacy is something that he wants to sort of cement and have his name kind of etched into history as one of the best to ever do it, if not the best. So this is the fight that's going to be that, I guess, launching pad for that to happen, because you put this rivalry and this trilogy with Max to bed. What comes from this is some big historical type opportunities.
Absolutely, and what you're sort of referring to there is the intention to sort of move up to lightweight and challenge Oliveira, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's Oliveira, with whoever the fuck's got the belt, like for sure after this, I think I would be fully on board to see Volk move up in weight and fight and compete against some of the top lightweights and showcase his sort of ability to be able to do that. People forget that, man. He's on a 21 fight win streak or whatever it is, but people forget the dude fought at welterweight, he fought at lightweight, he fought at middleweight. Like, he only lost once and it was at welterweight. Fucking, that's ridiculous. So I feel like he can sit quite nicely between featherweight and lightweight and fight in both divisions. And in the lightweight division, Charles Oliveira is not the worst matchup for him stylistically. Charles gets touched, and the mistake that the other guys made, like Gaethje, Chandler, Poirier, they touched Charles, hurt Charles, but then kept themselves there to be able to sort of not capitalize on the ability that was present, like the opportunity to finish, where Volko's not going to do that. If he touches you and hurts you like that, then he's going to put you away, and he's going to remove your ability to stop that off the table. And he's shown how hard he is to submit anyway. I mean, Ortega's probably one of the best jiu-jitsu people in the UFC outside of Oliveira. And, so it's not like it's going to be an easy task to just, I'm just going to get a hold of the dude and try and submit him. I'm a really good fucking grappler, and I try when he's fresh as. I've tried when he's 8 rounds in and he's meant to be tired and meant to be broken. And I can tell you it's not fucking easy to get anything on that dude.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hopefully Volk gets it done, and we can see how he fares at lightweight, and see if we can get that champ status. But one guy who did try and unfortunately failed the first time out for champ status was Israel Adesanya, who's defending his middleweight title in the main event against Jared Cannonier. Now, obviously Israel's coming off another win over Robert Whittaker in February. He's perhaps running out of opponents at middleweight at the moment. He's beaten 5 out of the top 6. The only one he's yet to face is Sean Strickland, who's also on the card. But Cannonier is 38 years old now. He's just beaten Kelvin Gastelum and Derek Brunson, which in his last 2 fights since his own loss to Robert Whittaker. So what do you make of I guess Jared Cannonier's chances against Israel Adesanya?
He didn't just beat Brunson, he beat Blonde Brunson. All right, so let's chalk that one up. He beat the mythical Blonde Brunson, and he did it convincingly. But I don't know, man. It's hard for me to get excited about these matchups for Izzy, because what is Jared Cannonier bringing to the table that Izzy hasn't already seen a million times over in his kickboxing career and so far in his MMA career? What am I meant to look at, even if I wasn't going to be I'm take my bias off the table? What am I meant to look at and identify when I'm analyzing this and go, if this is something that he can do that's going to give Izzy some trouble? There really isn't anything. Okay, yeah, I get it. He hits hard. Everyone fucking hits hard. It's the middleweight division. Izzy got cracked by fucking Yoel Romero. So I don't think getting hit by Cannonier is going to be this new level of power that he's never seen before. At the end of the day, the guy is so tall, so long. His distance management, his adjustments, his calmness in there, his just ability to identify the areas where he can exploit 5, 6, 7 different options to counter you or, pick you apart for each thing that you do. The guy's so good. He's so fucking good. I don't see anything that Jared's going to do that's going to give Izzy trouble. I feel like Izzy's going to get in there and show out. This fight doesn't go past the 3rd round. He gets put away. Cannonier gets stopped. Izzy cements himself as another person who's one of the best to ever do it. And we start looking at, potentially him moving up again to light heavyweight, because, what other options is he going to have at middleweight after this? Potentially the winner of Strickland and Pereira, or whatever the fuck that's going to be. But, even then, what's Strickland do that no one else does? Pretty much nothing. He just likes to stand in the pocket and punch on. That's what he likes to do. Talk to you while he's fighting you, stand there in front of you and just punch you in the face. That's not going to work against Izzy. And unfortunately, I don't think Strickland's wrestling and grappling is at a level where he's going to be able to get a hold of Izzy and put him on his back. So that kind of takes that off the table. The matchup that everyone is going to want to see is Pereira. Everyone's going to want to see Pereira beat Strickland, him and Izzy get back in there and fight again because of what happened in the kickboxing, well, because of the knockout in the kickboxing fight. But like Izzy said on the embedded and all that sort of shit, it's easy for people to look at that fight and see the knockout, but no one's actually, no one that's an MMA fan or that follows the UFC has gone and actually watched those kickboxing fights. Izzy was beating the shit out of the dude in both fights. You know, the first fight was like a razor-thin decision, and then the second fight, up until getting clipped, he was just picking the dude apart. Like, he was just playing with him. So it was like, it's not like this guy just smoked him completely and made it look easy, you know. Fair enough, got clipped, got knocked out, but that was in kickboxing. This is MMA. Izzy's the champion. He's number 3 on the pound-for-pound list. Like, he's a fucking very experienced, very talented mixed martial artist. And at the moment, I don't see anyone on his level or anyone that's able to beat him. The only guy that is that, like, sort of, that keeps popping up, that is running through these other contenders, has been Whittaker. But, I mean, even if we see that fight again, what's Whittaker going to do different, again, to adjust for a third fight with Izzy, if that happens? Like, what are we going to be talking about? Like, what's he going to, like, really, what is he going to do different in a third fight that's going to give, Adesanya some trouble? I don't see anything happening.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, obviously, for me, like, Cannonier is a puncher's chance at best. But, like, I guess, like you say, Izzy's in a bit of a weird spot, you know. Presuming that he does beat Cannonier, he's obviously, he's been up to light heavyweight already. It didn't work out for him. He's pretty much cleaned out his division. So, yeah, like you say, it's quite a simple storyline for them to go for, is sort of Sean Strickland, the last guy. He's on, I think Strickland's won 6 in a row or something like that. So, he's got a decent win streak there, so that's kind of sellable. He's the last sort of guy in the sort of top 5 or 6 that Israel hasn't fought. And then obviously if Pereira wins, they've obviously fast tracked him in there, as that's obviously a relatively simple sell as well because of the history that those two have had. So but then I don't know, after that, then he's got to go up, doesn't he? Like, they're just running out of things to do with him.
For my money, Izzy beats Cannonier. He fights the winner of Strickland and Pereira, puts that to bed, move up. Give me Yuri Prohaska versus Adesanya. Give me that fight. Light heavyweight title, Yuri versus Izzy. Fuck, that'd be a cool fight.
It would be a very cool fight. And look, for me, like, when Israel does, sort of if and when Israel does go up again, I'd like him to sort of maybe do it properly next time. I don't know if that's sort of sort of saying sort of a little bit too much, but for me, I felt like he didn't really sort of make the effort to kind of fill himself out and sort of move up to light heavyweight. He kind of, I think he weighed in under the limit, and then obviously, he fought Jan, who cuts to make light heavyweight, and I think the size difference was kind of evident in the end. What do you reckon? Yeah,
I mean, he definitely touched Jan a lot more, but it did sort of seem when Jan touched him that it was, wearing a bit on him. You could see the weight behind the punches was affecting him a bit more. But at the end of the day, even then, the adjustment in the fight was Jan taking him down and just being able to stay on top of him. Up until that point, the fight was reasonably close. Even though Izzy it looked like his punches, like when Izzy was getting touched, it looked like that. The punches had a bit more pop on him than compared to when he was hitting Jan. But he was still hitting Jan a lot, So the fight was reasonably competitive, reasonably close up until Jan made the adjustments and took him down and then was able to just control him on the ground. But yeah, I think if he moves up again, it's going to be a lot different. I feel like he can take the information from doing it that first time and just, kind of do it properly. Like you said, do it properly this time.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we've got to get to a fan question. We've got this week's fan question comes from Harry Tompkins. So thank you, Harry, for the support and for the question. But Harry asks, Dan and Justin, what fight would you love to see come together on the regional scene in Australia? What do you reckon?
Maybe a few good fights to sort of look at on the regional circuit, but one that's relevant, or I guess sort of fresh in my mind at the moment. Give me Dave Martinez versus Aiden Aguilera. After the back and forth that these blokes have had on social media, with Aiden just relentlessly pursuing this fight with Martinez and then being booked to fight Becker, that fight panning out how it did, Martinez fighting, calling Aiden out, him coming off a win over Tim Schultz, like everything, just give me that fight. Book that fight. Cam, Ben, Dave, Aiden, I don't know, all these get together, start a group chat, figure it out. I know there's been talk on both ends of it of potentially happening. Let's make that happen, because that's the fight that I want to see come together on the regional circuit. I feel like it'll be an interesting one. It's going to be, it'll be a good fight to sort of watch, especially with all the build-up. And I feel like once it's booked, that build-up's going to get even better. So, yeah, it's sort of like a must-happen fight for me now on the regional circuit.
Yeah, absolutely, and once they're booked for to fight for a belt, that's that's huge. Like that sort of build up that's been simmering for so long on social media, and now obviously they've called each other out in the cage and all those sorts of things. So it's obviously just going to go through the roof once it's booked, and there's a belt on the line. So I think a grudge match and a good rivalry like that is I think that's important for local MMA to sort of get that sort of build up and sell the fight that way. So that's a fun one for sure.
Yeah, and I think the main thing is that's going to be the best sort of part about it is going to be the social media exchanges. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be fucking incredible.
Yeah, it'd be fun for sure. And I guess with that in mind, like one that I was kind of disappointed that didn't go ahead, and it's not because you're obviously on the other side of the call here, but Van Heerden versus Jenkins was a sort of a disappointing cancellation in the end. That was kind of a rivalry that was just kind of simmering nicely. So. Obviously, we think that Jack Jenkins is off to Disneyland. We don't know. This sort of hasn't seemed to have come to fruition just yet. But that'd be that was a fun matchup that kind of fell by the wayside. But for me, I guess a fun stylistic matchup. Again, one of these guys is sort of off to Disneyland at the moment. But Steve Erceg versus Sean Etchell would be a kind of a fun little sort of stylistic matchup. That'd be a really sort of really great one to have a look at. What do you reckon?
I like that. That'd be obviously with how that's sort of set up at the moment, but that'd be a fun fight to watch, man. Because Erceg's he's so fucking good. Sean's very, very good as well. He's very, very game. I'm actually bummed that we didn't get to see that fight pretty much already. Really, that could have been one that's sort of got thrown together already. But obviously, Erceg's off to Contender Series. Etchell just fought on the road to the UFC, and kind of obviously didn't go his way. But we're gonna have to see what happens. I mean, it could still be a fight that comes together, because we don't know. There's plus so many factors involved. Erceg could go out there on Contender Series, win his fight, and still not get a contract. Who knows? And then we could be seeing him fight on the regional circuit again for a little bit before he goes back on the Contender Series. Who knows? Hopefully it all goes well and the dude gets the opportunity and gets the contract, because he's a super likable dude and he's super talented. But if that somehow potentially comes together and we get to see Stephen Erceg versus Sean Etchell, everyone's going to know that they heard it first on Fight Talk Down Under, and they're going to appreciate that we're out here throwing these matchups together.
Absolutely, you're welcome. But obviously, it seems like the ship might have sailed on that one. But who knows? It might come together one day, and hopefully it does. Maybe in the UFC one day. Who knows? But
fuck it, yeah. Stephen, just jump on a plane, fly to Tassie, and just punch on in the gym. And someone film
UFC
it.
Doesn't have to know about it.
Nah, someone film it, send it to us, and we'll just so we can enjoy it.
Yeah, we'll just run it on here on Fight Talk Down Under for our 27 listeners. So.
The most valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. But I guess, and we've got to wrap this up. But another thing that we've talked about sort of internally here at Fight News Australia is how we would sort of love to see for ex sort of big promotion fighters sort of come back to the local scene and take on some local guys, and I understand why they don't, and I guess there is the odd one that does sort of come back maybe at the end of their career, but I guess I don't know, maybe a guy like Damien Brown, I know he's sort of he's still with Ryzen, and he's got his promotion beatdown promotions, but someone like that come back and take on like Jack Becker or Aiden Aguilera, or sort of come back and sort of challenge these sort of guys on the local scene, that'd be sort of Yeah, they'd be fun matchups. They're kind of like little crossroads matchups, but it would be a boost for the local scene to see these sort of ex-UFC and Bellator and Ryzen sort of fighters come back onto the local scene. But, you could play around with plenty of fun matchups like that. But, something that we've talked about before, and, I feel like it'd be, it'd be a fun thing for the local promotions.
On that topic, actually, I do believe that Antonio Caruso is no longer fighting for one championship. And his name is one that I did see get thrown out to fight Aguilera for the Eternal title. Obviously I don't know if that's actually legitimate or not, that he's no longer fighting in 1FC or what the case is there. But if he's someone who's not fighting in one championship anymore and Eternal can snap him up, that'd be a good one to sort of throw in there, because he's fought some top level people overseas. So that kind of plays into exactly what you just sort of said.
Yeah, I believe that's true. I believe, Antonio Caruso has been, I don't know if he was let go, or whether he sort of turned down a contract with one. I don't know exactly what the situation was, but I did spot that on social media, and I did ask around, and it looks like, he has actually ended his association with one. So, yeah, there's possibly opportunities there on the local scene for him. We know he was on... he boxed on Wildfighter or whatever, I think it was, down in Geelong. I think he was sort of in the ring down there. So he has been back sort of on the local scene in boxing. But I believe there will be something coming up soon for him.
I definitely saw him.
Some fun ones.
I definitely saw him at Eternal when I fought Alan. Put his boy away, but I remember seeing him when I climbed the cage. So yeah, he's around. He's here. So hopefully he's going to be fighting on the biggest promotion in the country soon.
Absolutely, and of course we'll be there to cover it. If it does happen, but until then, episode 22 is next week. We're going to recap UFC 276. I'll be recapping PFL 6, Opataya versus Breedis. We'll be previewing Jamie Malaki's fight, as well as Beatdown Promotions 1. So there'll be plenty more good stuff coming next week. So make sure you tune in. But until then, send us through your fan questions. The details will be below if you're watching on YouTube. If not, it's at Dan Meehan MMA on Twitter, at Lockjaw MMA on Instagram. If you don't have any fan questions for us, just make sure at least that if you haven't already, like and subscribe. YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Fight News Australia, and we are now also on iHeartRadio. That's a new one that I've gotten over the line there. So if we've got any iHeartRadio users out there, then you can find us on there as well. Also, as we've said the last couple of episodes, we've got a new Instagram page. It's at Fight Talk Down Under. Lots of fun stuff going on that page as well. So give us a follow on there. For more good content, of course, check out my interviews. Isaac Hardman and Elliot Compton. They've recently released interviews on the Fight News Australia YouTube channel, and I will have more interviews coming next week. So stay tuned for those. That's enough from me. So, Lockjaw, what do you got for us?
I'm going to leave you with some good news. My good friend, Michael Stanoff, has been booked to fight on Beatdown Promotions after having matchup after matchup after matchup fall through, and then people turn down the fight with him. And he's a guy that is 0-1 as a pro, went 7-1 as an amateur, so it's not like he's overly experienced professional having fights turned down on him by experienced people who just said no and don't want to fight him. But he's finally booked a fight on Beatdown Promotions. So shout out to Michael, because he's going to come out there and bash some cunt, and everyone's going to actually then have a reason to not fight him after that.
I gotta watch it, you never know what might stop you. Here I